My in-laws offered to bring dessert for our anniversary dinner. They showed up with a cake that said, "Here's to surviving year one." I tried to laugh. My husband did. Then his mom said, "Some people didn't think you'd make it this far." I said, "Some people should have kept that to themselves." It was a warm July evening in Charleston, South Carolina, when my husband, Mark, and I celebrated our first wedding anniversary. We had planned a cozy dinner at our home, inviting close friends and family. Mark's parents, Susan and Robert, offered to bring dessert. I thought it was a kind gesture, but little did I know it would be the catalyst for a series of events that would test our marriage and my patience. When Susan and Robert arrived, they carried a large cake box. Everyone gathered around as they opened it, revealing a beautifully decorated cake with the words, "Here's to surviving year one." The room fell silent. I forced a laugh, trying to brush it off, but Susan, with a smirk, added, "Some people didn't think you'd make it this far." I replied, "Some people should have kept that to themselves." The evening continued, but the atmosphere was tense. I couldn't shake off the feeling that Susan's comment was more than just a joke. Over the next few weeks, I noticed subtle jabs and passive-aggressive remarks from her. She would criticize my cooking, question our decisions, and often compare me to Mark's ex-girlfriend, whom she adored. I tried to discuss this with Mark, but he dismissed my concerns, attributing them to Susan's quirky sense of humor. I felt isolated and began to question my own perceptions. One day, while cleaning the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old letters and photos. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started reading. To my shock, I found letters from Susan to Mark's ex, expressing her desire for them to reconcile and her disapproval of our marriage. It was evident that Susan had been sabotaging our relationship from the beginning. Armed with this knowledge, I confronted Mark. He was stunned and apologized for not taking my concerns seriously. We decided to confront Susan together. During the confrontation, Susan didn't deny her actions. She justified them by saying she believed Mark's ex was a better fit for him. I was furious, but remained composed. We decided to distance ourselves from Susan and Robert, focusing on rebuilding our marriage without their interference. As time passed, our relationship grew stronger. We learned to communicate better and set boundaries. While the journey was challenging, it taught us the importance of trust and standing up for each other. Now, every anniversary, we bake our own cake, decorating it with words that reflect our journey and love. And every time we see the phrase, "Here's to surviving year one," we smile, knowing we've come a long way. So after the cake incident and that awkward comment from my mother-in-law, I thought we'd hit our peak drama. I was wrong. 2 weeks after that dinner, Mark started getting weird. Distant. Like, really distant. Not the usual tired from work stuff. He wasn't just zoning out, he was avoiding conversations, staying out late, and always on his phone, screen turned away. At first, I tried giving him space. Everyone needs that sometimes, right? But something felt off. One night, he left his phone on the couch while taking a shower. I know I shouldn't have, but I looked. The lock screen showed a text from a number I didn't recognize. It read, "She doesn't deserve you." You know it. I froze. I opened the message thread. It was locked. He'd put a second passcode on his texts. I put the phone down, heart racing, and waited. I didn't say anything right away. I needed time to think, to figure out if this was paranoia or if something deeper was happening. The next morning, I went for coffee with a friend of mine who's known Mark longer than I have, Andrea. She used to work with him, and now she's one of the few people I really trust. I told her everything. Her face went pale when I mentioned the text. "I recognize that number," she said. Turns out, that number belonged to Tasha, Mark's ex. The one his mom adored. The same one Susan had written to, hoping they'd get back together. So yeah, my stomach dropped. My head started spinning. Was this Susan again, playing puppet master? Was Mark falling for it? I didn't want to jump to conclusions. So I did the thing people do in stories like this. I dug. I started tracking little things. Times, messages, when he said he was working late. I talked to Andrea again. She confirmed it. Tasha was back in town, living across the bridge in Mount Pleasant. And apparently, she'd been seen having coffee with Robert, Mark's dad, just 2 days before our anniversary dinner. I felt sick. Now it all made sense. The cake, the comment, the fake smiles. It wasn't just passive-aggressive sniping. They were actively hoping I'd disappear from Mark's life. Maybe even helping that happen. I confronted Mark. He didn't deny texting Tasha. Said she reached out as a friend. Said she just wanted to talk. Said it wasn't a big deal. I asked him if he told her he was married. He said yes. I asked if he told her we were happy. He went quiet. That silence said everything. I packed a bag. I didn't leave for good, but I needed time. I stayed with Andrea for a few nights. During that time, I decided I wouldn't just wait for things to crash. If they were going to light a fire under me, I'd make damn sure I burned the right things down. I hired a private investigator. I know. Dramatic. But I was tired of feeling like I was in the dark in my own life. And guess what? The PI didn't take long. 2 weeks later, he gave me a report. Photos. Mark meeting Tasha at a hotel bar. Mark walking her to her car. Mark hugging her goodbye, not in a friendly way. But here's the twist that really messed me up. One photo showed Mark handing her a small box. The kind that looked like jewelry. I confronted him again, this time with the photos. He didn't deny it. He got defensive. Said I was overreacting. Said I never trusted him anyway. Tried to flip it on me for checking his phone. That was the moment something broke in me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, looking at this man I thought I knew. Then he said the words I'll never forget. At least she listens to me. You're always just waiting for me to mess up. And suddenly, it was like every smug smirk Susan had ever thrown at me made perfect sense. This wasn't just about Mark cheating. This was a setup. A long game. I could see it so clearly now. And what I did next, well, let's just say the game was no longer theirs to play. So after Mark threw that "at least she listens to me" line at me, I left. Not permanently. At least not yet, but I knew I was done playing the quiet, forgiving wife. I stayed at Andrea's for a bit longer and started piecing things together. Every photo, every message, every look I ignored started to line up in a way that made me feel stupid and furious all at once. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. A few days after I left, Mark's boss, yes, his actual boss, emailed me. Not Mark. Me. It was short. Hi, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I thought you should know Tasha came by the office twice this past month. It fell off. Just wanted to let you know. That email? It lit me up. Turns out, Tasha had been trying to get a job at Mark's company. A company where he has no hiring power. But she kept dropping in, saying she wanted to reconnect with old contacts. Mark told me she had just reached out, but she'd been trying to be around him in person. Repeatedly. Creepy, right? That's when I started to wonder if maybe even he wasn't in full control of the situation. Andrea and I went full Sherlock. I made a fake Facebook profile, nothing fancy, just a stock photo and a believable name. I friend Tasha. She accepted. Within days, I had access to everything, her posts, her tagged photos, her comments. One night, she posted a picture of a wine glass on a fancy marble counter. No caption. Just a heart emoji. Innocent enough, except the counter? That was my kitchen. She had been in my home. And I had no idea when. That was when it got real. I showed Andrea. We scrolled through all her posts. Every vague caption. Every half-faced selfie. And slowly, horrifyingly, we started recognizing places, our backyard, our guest room, even our car. She hadn't just been sneaking around. She had been inside our lives without us knowing. Or maybe Mark did know. I still wasn't sure. So I did something drastic. I went back to the house, but I didn't tell Mark. He was at work. I walked around slowly, checking everything. I didn't expect to find much. But in the drawer of our bedroom nightstand, behind a stack of books, a spare key, wrapped in tissue, with a sticky note stuck to it that just said, "In case you need to come by." I took a photo of it, put it back exactly as I found it, walked out of that house without saying a word. That night, I printed the photo, folded it neatly, and mailed it, with no return address, to Susan and Robert. Yeah, that's right. I mailed it to his parents. Because if they were going to play God in our marriage, I was going to make them watch their little plan fall apart, piece by piece. What I didn't expect. Robert showed up at Andrea's apartment the next day. Alone. He looked tired. He asked to talk. I said no. Andrea told him to leave. But as he turned to go, he said something I still think about. "You don't know the whole story." None of us do. That one sentence? It changed everything again. Because now I wasn't sure who was lying and who was just caught in something bigger than they realized. So after Robert dropped that line, "You don't know the whole story," I couldn't shake it. I started thinking, what if Mark wasn't the one who gave Tasha the key? What if someone else put it there? I didn't want to believe it, but I had to consider everything. And the more I thought about Susan's need for control, the more I started to see it. She had been in our house dozens of times, always offering to clean up after dinners, always walking into rooms uninvited. She even had a key before we changed the locks after our honeymoon because she needed to water the plants. I checked our security camera backups. We hadn't used them much, but Mark had installed them months ago. One camera faced the front door, one was aimed at the side entry, and one, barely working, was inside the hallway near the kitchen. I sat there at 2 a.m., scrubbing through footage, and there it was. 2 days before our anniversary dinner, Susan let herself in through the side door while we were both at work. She wasn't just dropping something off. She walked straight into the bedroom, stayed for 10 minutes, left without taking or putting anything obvious down. That's when it hit me. She left the key, not Mark. It had been her plan all along. She let Tasha back into his life, gave her access to our home, tried to destroy our marriage piece by piece, all while smiling in my face. And Mark? He was dumb enough to fall for it, but maybe not fully in on it. Still, I wasn't about to let him off the hook. Not after he met her behind my back. Not after he let me feel crazy and alone for months. I didn't just want to leave. I wanted it to sting. So here's what I did. First, I gathered every piece of proof I had: texts, photos, the security footage. Then I wrote a long letter. Not to Mark. To Tasha. I told her everything. That I knew about the hotel, the lies, the box, the key. I told her I wasn't going to fight her for him, because I was done. Then I said one final thing. "You're welcome to him. But you'll never get his family's approval. Because they don't love you, they just hate me." I mailed it to her work address. Certified. Then I scheduled a dinner. One last dinner with Mark and his parents. I made his favorite, slow-roasted ribs and cornbread. Set the table nice. When they arrived, I was calm. Quiet. Collected. They talked. I smiled. Mark looked confused. Susan was giddy, like she'd won something. Robert barely spoke. After dessert, I handed out 3 envelopes. One for each of them. I told them to open them at the same time. Inside were printed screenshots of every message, every photo. A still from the security cam of Susan walking into my bedroom. A copy of the letter I sent to Tasha. And my signed divorce papers. I stood up, looked at Susan, and said, "You didn't ruin my marriage. You just showed me who my husband really is." Then I turned to Mark. "You had a chance to fight for me. You chose silence." And to Robert, "You were the only one who tried to stop this. I hope you sleep better than the others." Then I walked out. I moved back home to Asheville a week later. Got a job in a bookstore. Reclaimed my peace. Therapy helped. So did time. 1 year later, on what would have been our 2nd anniversary, I got a message from Tasha. Just one line. You were right. I never replied. But I smiled. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's walking away with everything they tried to take from you and leaving them with each other. The real punishment? Letting them live in the mess they made. And I'm finally free.